My daughter-in-law accused me of being a controlling mother, so I showed everyone the texts of her asking for money. Everything started falling apart during what was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner last September. My son had just gotten married 6 months earlier, and I was trying my absolute hardest to build a good relationship with his new wife. She seemed sweet enough at first, always smiling and nodding when I spoke, but there was something underneath that smile that made me uncomfortable. I couldn't put my finger on it back then, but looking back now, I realized she was already planning something. The dinner was at my house, something I'd been doing every Sunday for years with my son before he got married. I figured it would be nice to continue the tradition and include her in our family routine. I spent the entire Saturday preparing his favorite meal, the same way I'd done it since he was a little boy. Pot roast with all the fixings, mashed potatoes made from scratch, green beans, and apple pie for dessert. The house smelled incredible, and I was genuinely excited to have them both over. When they arrived, she seemed different somehow, more distant than usual. She barely touched her food and kept checking her phone throughout the meal. I asked if everything was okay, if maybe the food wasn't to her liking. She just gave me that same fake smile and said everything was fine. My son looked uncomfortable too, shifting in his seat and avoiding eye contact with me. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't figure out what I had done. After dinner, while I was clearing the dishes, she suddenly stood up and announced that she needed to talk to me about something important. My heart started racing because her tone was so serious, almost accusatory. She said that my son had been feeling overwhelmed by my constant interference in their marriage. She claimed I was being controlling and manipulative, always trying to insert myself into their lives. I was completely shocked because I genuinely thought I was being helpful and supportive. She went on to say that my Sunday dinners were too much pressure, that I was always giving unsolicited advice about their relationship, and that I needed to back off and let them live their own lives. The words hit me like a physical blow. I had no idea that's how they felt, and I was devastated that my attempts to be a good mother and mother-in-law were being interpreted as controlling behavior. I started crying right there in my own kitchen, feeling like the worst person in the world. My son just sat there the entire time, not defending me or disagreeing with anything she said. That hurt almost more than her accusations. This was the same boy I had raised by myself after his father left, when he was just 7 years old. I had worked 2 jobs to put him through college, sacrificed my own social life to make sure he had everything he needed. Now he was sitting silently, while his wife tore me apart with her words. I apologized immediately, telling them both that I had no idea I was making them feel that way. I promised to give them more space and to be more mindful of my boundaries. She seemed satisfied with my response, but there was something in her eyes that told me this wasn't really about boundaries at all. It felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between my son and me, though I couldn't understand why. Over the next few weeks, I kept my distance just like I had promised. I stopped calling my son every few days to check in. I canceled the Sunday dinners. I even stopped sending care packages with his favorite cookies and homemade soup. It was killing me inside, but I wanted to respect their wishes and prove that I wasn't the controlling monster she had made me out to be. But then something strange started happening. She began texting me directly, asking for favors and help with various things. At first, it was small stuff that seemed innocent enough. She asked if I could watch their dog while they went out of town for a weekend. She wanted my grandmother's recipe for chocolate chip cookies. She asked if I knew a good plumber because their kitchen sink was acting up. I was happy to help because it felt like maybe she was trying to build a relationship with me after all. Then the requests started getting bigger and more frequent. She asked if I could help them move some furniture because they couldn't afford to hire movers. She wanted to know if I could lend them my car for a few days while theirs was in the shop. She asked if I could babysit their neighbors' kids so she could pick up some extra cash. Each time, I said yes, because I was desperate to prove that I wasn't the awful person she had painted me to be. The financial requests started subtly. She mentioned that they were having trouble making ends meet and asked if I knew of any good side jobs. Then she asked if I could spot them some money for groceries just until payday. She said they were embarrassed to ask, but they were really struggling. Of course, I helped them out. What kind of mother-in-law would I be if I let my son go hungry? But the money requests kept coming, and they kept getting larger. First, it was $50 for groceries, then $100 for their electric bill. Then it was $300 for a car repair, $500 for rent when her hours got cut at work. Each time, she promised they would pay me back as soon as they got back on their feet. Each time, I transferred the money without question, because I loved my son and wanted to help. What really bothered me was that these conversations were happening entirely through text messages, and my son was never involved. She would text me directly, usually late at night or early in the morning. She would lay out their financial problems in detail, making me feel guilty for having money while they were struggling. She was very good at making it seem like I was their only hope, like their entire future depended on my generosity. I started keeping track of the money I was lending them, not because I didn't trust them, but because I wanted to make sure I could afford to keep helping. By Christmas, I had given them over $3,000. $3,000 that I had been saving for a cruise I had been planning for years. I told myself that helping my family was more important than any vacation, but it stung knowing that my dreams were being sacrificed. What made it worse was that during this entire time, she was still maintaining her distance from me in person. When I would see them at family gatherings, she would barely acknowledge me. She would make little comments about how nice it must be to have so much money, how some people had it so easy. Meanwhile, she was texting me regularly asking for more and more financial help. The breaking point came in March when she asked for $2,000 to help them catch up on credit card debt. She said they were in serious trouble and might have to file for bankruptcy if they couldn't get help soon. She painted this picture of my son being so stressed that he couldn't sleep, so worried about money that it was affecting his health. As his mother, I couldn't bear the thought of him suffering like that. I agreed to lend them the money, but this time I asked if we could sit down and talk about a repayment plan. I wasn't trying to be controlling or demanding, I just wanted to understand their financial situation better so I could help them get back on their feet. She got defensive immediately, saying that I was being unreasonable and that family should help family without conditions. That's when things got really ugly. She started accusing me of using money to control them, of holding my financial help over their heads. She said I was trying to buy my way back into their lives after they had set clear boundaries. She claimed that my offer to help create a budget was just another way for me to interfere in their marriage. I was completely blindsided by her reaction. She told me that if I was going to attach strings to my help, then they didn't want it anymore. She said they would figure out their problems on their own, and that I should stop trying to play the martyr. Then she had the audacity to suggest that maybe I was the one with the problem, that maybe I needed to examine why I felt the need to control everyone around me with money. I was so hurt and confused by her response that I didn't even know how to defend myself. I had been trying to be supportive and helpful, but somehow everything I did was being twisted into something manipulative and controlling. I started to wonder if maybe she was right, if maybe I really was the problem. I began questioning every interaction we'd had, every offer of help I'd made. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over all of our conversations, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through all the text messages she had sent me over the past several months. Reading them all together like that, I started to see a pattern that I hadn't noticed before. Every single message was asking for something, whether it was money, help, or favors. I realized that she had never once texted me just to say hello or to see how I was doing. She had never sent me a funny meme or asked about my day. Every single communication was transactional. She was only reaching out to me when she needed something, and then she was turning around and accusing me of being controlling when I tried to set reasonable boundaries. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I had been bending over backwards to prove that I wasn't the controlling mother-in-law she had accused me of being. I had given them thousands of dollars of my own money, money that I had worked hard to save. I had sacrificed my own plans and dreams to help them out. And this was how she repaid me. I decided to take screenshots of all of her text messages, asking for money. I wanted to have documentation of our interactions, in case this situation got worse. I also wanted to be able to show my son exactly what had been happening, since he seemed to be completely unaware of how much his wife had been asking me for help. The next family gathering was my sister's birthday party in April. Everyone was there, including my son and his wife. I was trying to keep things civil, but she seemed determined to make things awkward. She made several pointed comments about how some people think money can solve everything, how generosity can be a form of manipulation. She was clearly trying to make me look bad in front of the whole family. My sister pulled me aside and asked what was going on between us. She said the tension was obvious and that everyone was uncomfortable. I told her about the accusations of being controlling and about all the money I had been lending them. My sister was shocked because she had no idea any of this was happening. She said that if anyone was being manipulative, it wasn't me. That's when my daughter-in-law made her biggest mistake. She decided to air our dirty laundry in front of the entire family. She stood up during dinner and announced that she needed to address something that had been bothering her for months. She said that I had been trying to control their marriage through financial manipulation, that I was using money as a weapon to get my way. She told everyone that I had been pressuring them to accept my help, and then using that help to justify interfering in their relationship. She said that I was the type of person who gave gifts with strings attached, who used generosity as a form of emotional blackmail. She painted me as this manipulative, controlling woman who couldn't accept that her son was now married and had his own life. The room went completely silent. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for my response. I could feel my face turning red with embarrassment and anger. My own son was looking at me with disappointment, clearly believing everything his wife was saying. I felt like I was being ambushed by someone I had been trying so hard to help and support. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and started reading her text messages out loud. I read the one where she asked for money for groceries, the one where she asked for help with the electric bill, the one where she asked for money for car repairs. I read every single message where she had asked me for financial help, complete with her sob stories about how desperate they were. The room got even quieter as I continued reading. I read the message where she asked for $2,000 for credit card debt, the one where she claimed my son was so stressed about money that it was affecting his health. I read the message where she promised to pay me back as soon as they got back on their feet, and the one where she said family should help family without conditions. When I finished reading, I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. My son looked like he had been hit by a truck. He had no idea that his wife had been asking me for money behind his back. No idea that I had been supporting them financially for months. The rest of the family was staring at my daughter-in-law with expressions of disbelief and disgust. She tried to backtrack immediately, saying that the messages were being taken out of context, that I was twisting her words to make her look bad. She claimed that I had offered to help them and that she had only accepted because she thought I genuinely wanted to support them. She said that I was being vindictive and petty by sharing private conversations with the whole family. But the damage was done. Everyone could see the clear pattern of her asking for money, while simultaneously accusing me of being controlling. They could see how she had been manipulating me into giving her money by playing on my emotions and my love for my son. They could see how she had been lying to my son about the extent of their financial problems and about my involvement in their lives. My son was mortified. He stood up and left the room, and I could hear him arguing with his wife in the hallway. He was demanding to know why she had been asking me for money without telling him, why she had been lying to him about their financial situation. She was trying to defend herself, but it was clear that she had been caught in a web of lies and manipulation. The party pretty much ended after that. People started leaving, but not before several family members came up to me to express their support. My sister said she was proud of me for standing up for myself, that I had been too generous and trusting for my own good. My brother said he couldn't believe how manipulative my daughter-in-law had been, how she had been playing both sides against each other. Over the next few days, I got several phone calls from family members who wanted to hear more about what had been happening. They were all shocked by the level of manipulation and deceit that had been going on. Several of them admitted that they had thought my daughter-in-law seemed fake from the beginning, but they hadn't wanted to say anything because they didn't want to cause problems. My son called me a few days later, and he was a different person. He was apologetic and ashamed of how he had treated me. He said he had had no idea that his wife had been asking me for money, that she had been telling him their financial problems were much worse than they actually were. He said she had been using my money to pay for things like expensive clothes and dinners out, not the necessities she had claimed they needed. He told me that they had been having serious problems in their marriage for months, but she had been blaming everything on me. She had convinced him that I was the source of all their stress, that I was trying to control their relationship. He realized now that she had been using me as a scapegoat for their problems, while simultaneously taking advantage of my generosity. The most shocking revelation came when he told me that she had been planning to ask me for $10,000 to help them buy a house. She had been working up to this big request for months, building up their financial desperation story so that I would feel obligated to help them with such a large amount. She had been playing a long game, manipulating both of us for her own benefit. I was devastated to learn how deep her deception had gone. She had been systematically destroying my relationship with my son while stealing money from me. She had been playing the victim while actually being the manipulator. She had been accusing me of behavior that she herself was guilty of. It was like finding out that someone you trusted had been stealing from you while telling everyone else that you were the thief. My son said he was considering divorce. He said he couldn't trust her anymore, that he didn't know what else she had been lying about. He said he felt like he didn't even know the person he had married, that everything about their relationship had been built on lies and manipulation. He was devastated and confused, not knowing how to move forward. I told him that whatever decision he made about his marriage, I would support him. I said that I loved him and that I was sorry for any role I had played in their problems. I admitted that maybe I had been too involved in their lives, that maybe I had overstepped some boundaries. But I also made it clear that asking for help, and then accusing someone of being controlling for providing that help was not acceptable behavior. The situation with my daughter-in-law got even worse after the family dinner incident. She started telling people that I had humiliated her in front of everyone, that I had violated her privacy by sharing her text messages. She claimed that I was trying to ruin her marriage because I couldn't accept that my son had chosen her over me. She was still trying to play the victim, even after being caught in her lies. She started a campaign to turn other family members against me. She called my other relatives and told them her version of events, painting me as a vindictive and jealous mother-in-law who couldn't let go of her son. She said that I had been harassing her with unwanted financial help, and then using that help to try to control their marriage. She was trying to rewrite history to make herself look like the victim. But her plan backfired, because most of the family had been at the birthday party and had heard the text messages themselves. They knew the truth about what had been happening. Several relatives actually called me to warn me that she had been trying to turn them against me, but that they weren't buying her story. They said they could see right through her manipulation tactics. The final straw came when she started spreading rumors about me in the community. She told people at her workplace that I was a controlling and manipulative person who had been making her life miserable. She said that I had been stalking her and her husband, that I had been trying to break up their marriage from the beginning. She was trying to destroy my reputation in our small town. When I found out about the rumors she was spreading, I decided that enough was enough. I had been trying to take the high road and let the situation blow over, but she was clearly not going to stop her campaign against me. I decided to take action to protect myself and my reputation. I gathered all of the text messages she had sent me asking for money and made copies of them. I also wrote down a detailed timeline of all the events that had happened, including the amounts of money I had given them, and the dates when each request had been made. I wanted to have documentation of everything in case I needed to defend myself legally. I also started telling my own version of events to people in the community who had heard her rumors. I showed them the text messages and explained what had really been happening. Most people were shocked by the evidence and realized that she had been lying to them. Word spread quickly that she was not the victim she had been pretending to be. The truth about her behavior started to catch up with her. People at her workplace began to distance themselves from her when they realized she had been manipulating and lying to them. Friends and acquaintances started to see her in a different light. Her reputation in the community began to suffer as more people learned about what she had been doing. My son finally made the decision to file for divorce. He said he couldn't continue to be married to someone who had been lying to him and manipulating his family. He said he felt like he had been living with a stranger, that everything about their relationship had been based on deception. He was heartbroken, but knew that he couldn't build a future with someone he couldn't trust. The divorce proceedings were ugly. She tried to claim that I had been interfering in their marriage and that my interference had caused their problems. She demanded that my son pay her alimony and give her half of everything they owned. She was still trying to play the victim and make everyone else responsible for her problems. But the text messages I had saved became crucial evidence in the divorce proceedings. They showed a clear pattern of her manipulating me for money while lying to my son about their financial situation. They proved that she had been deceiving both of us and using me as a scapegoat for their marital problems. The judge was not sympathetic to her claims of being a victim. My son was awarded the divorce on grounds of fraud and deception. She was ordered to pay back the money she had taken from me, though I doubt I'll ever see most of it. She was also ordered to stop spreading rumors about me and to cease all contact with me. The judge said that her behavior had been manipulative and destructive, and that she had brought her problems on herself. After the divorce was finalized, my relationship with my son slowly began to heal. He was embarrassed and ashamed of how he had treated me during his marriage. He said he realized now that his wife had been poisoning him against me, making him believe that I was the problem when she was actually the one causing all the drama. We started having our Sunday dinners again, just the two of us like in the old days. It felt good to have my son back in my life, to be able to talk to him without feeling like everything I said was being reported back to someone who was trying to use it against me. We were both damaged by the experience, but we were committed to rebuilding our relationship. I learned some hard lessons from this experience. I learned that sometimes people who claim to be victims are actually the perpetrators. I learned that generosity can be taken advantage of if you're not careful about who you're helping. I learned that sometimes the people who accuse you of being controlling are actually the ones trying to control you. Most importantly, I learned that it's okay to stand up for yourself when someone is trying to manipulate and deceive you. I had been so afraid of being seen as a controlling mother-in-law that I had allowed myself to be taken advantage of. I had been so desperate to prove that I wasn't the person she said I was that I had let her walk all over me. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags that I missed. The way she would only contact me when she needed something. The way she would make me feel guilty for having money while they were struggling. The way she would promise to pay me back, but never actually did. The way she would accuse me of being controlling while simultaneously asking for my help. I also realized that my son had been a victim too. She had been lying to him about their financial situation, making him believe they were in worse shape than they actually were. She had been using my money to maintain a lifestyle that they couldn't actually afford, while telling him that they were barely getting by. She had been playing us both for fools. The experience taught me to be more careful about who I trust and how I offer help to others. I still want to be generous and supportive, but I'm more aware now of the signs of manipulation and deception. I know that true family members don't try to turn you against each other, and they don't lie and manipulate to get what they want. My son and I are closer now than we were before this whole mess started. We both learned valuable lessons about trust, manipulation, and the importance of honest communication. We also learned that sometimes the people who seem the most innocent are actually the most dangerous. We're both more cautious now about who we let into our lives and our hearts. I never did get to take that cruise I had been saving for. The money I had set aside for that trip went to someone who was lying to me about needing it. But I did learn something more valuable than any vacation could have taught me. I learned that standing up for yourself and exposing the truth is sometimes the most important thing you can do, even when it's uncomfortable and painful. The whole experience was devastating at the time, but I'm grateful now that it happened. It showed me who my daughter-in-law really was, before she could do even more damage to my family. It brought my son and me closer together and made our relationship stronger. It taught me to trust my instincts and to not let anyone make me feel guilty for setting reasonable boundaries. I still have all of those text messages saved on my phone. Sometimes I look at them and can't believe how manipulative and calculated they were. She had been playing a long game, slowly building up to bigger and bigger requests while simultaneously destroying my relationship with my son. She had been planning to take advantage of me for months, maybe even years. But her plan backfired spectacularly. Instead of driving me away from my son, she ended up driving him away from her. Instead of getting the big payout she was working toward, she ended up with nothing. Instead of making me look like the villain, she exposed herself as the real manipulator. Sometimes the truth has a way of coming out, even when people try their hardest to hide it. The best part of this whole story is that my son and I are now closer than ever. We learned to communicate better and to trust each other more. We also learned to be more careful about who we let into our lives and our family. We're both stronger and wiser because of this experience, even though it was painful at the time. I hope that anyone reading this story will learn from my mistakes. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for having boundaries. Don't let anyone manipulate you into giving them money by playing on your emotions. And most importantly, don't let anyone convince you that you're the problem when they're the ones lying and manipulating. Sometimes the best thing you can do is expose the truth, even when it's uncomfortable for everyone involved.